USCHO.com. This is the USCHO Spotlight, a weekly podcast from U.S. College Hockey Online at USCHO.com, featuring conversations with college hockey coaches and players and journalists who cover the sport.
Welcome to USCHO Spotlight for January 1st, 2019. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly. This episode is brought to you by the NCAA Frozen Four, April 11th and 13th at KeyBank Center in Buffalo. Visit ncaa.com/Frozen4. Well, while it's a light schedule in college hockey at semester break, things are hot and heavy in the World Juniors tournament up in British Columbia.
And we are joined now by the man who has called all of the games thus far and will continue to for NHL Network, a good friend of ours, Dave Starman. Dave, it is a great tournament. I know you've been a part of this for a long time, and another year, another great venue, and another very competitive American team.
It's a nice team, and it's funny, like, as I go through 11 years of rosters of doing this tournament, each one of them's got its own distinct, unique personality, and this one, the vibe among this group is set your next lineup for success, or set your next group up for success. So they've really worked on being very succinct in their line changes. They've worked on making sure they apply pressure and putting pucks in good areas where the next wave can come in and make good plays. It seems to be a very dialed in group where a lot of egos have gotten checked at the door, and so far so good. The only hiccup they had was that Sweden one where they lost in overtime. It was a great 4-goal third period comeback to get the game tied up. And prior to that comeback, they'd kind of been dead in the water for 40 minutes. I would say they had a good first 10 and then, a bad 40 and then, another good 10. The Finns, much more complete game. And I think that this team is starting to show a relentless drive to the net that they're going to need to be successful over the next 3 games.
You just kind of alluded to it, Dave. I look at the 4 games that the U.S. has played thus far, and each one, to me, feels like it has its own character. Having to find a way to beat Slovakia when you're just starting the tournament, and we know how tough that team can be and has been for the U.S. Then you've got a Kazakhstan team that you're supposed to rout. You're supposed to blow them out of the water. You end up 1-1 in the early goings, but then the offense starts to flow. You mentioned the Swedish game where they fall behind 4-0. That rally seems to be something you can take out of it, even though you get the loss there. And then New Year's Eve, a very complete performance. Is it safe to say that those characteristics can be things that can build this team, even though they're now going into a one and done scenario?
I think so. I think it's taken them a few games to sort out what the mindset needs to be, but that's not uncommon here. And it's the one thing I've seen from a lot of different teams, but obviously I see the U.S. more. It's one thing a lot of these teams have adjusted to as they've gone through the tournament. And I think that, game ones in this thing are so tricky, and the U.S. was kind of lucky to get out of the one that they did. And, having watched the Slovaks in the pre-tournament, you thought to yourself, this could be a 4 or 5 goal barrage, and it just never materialized. And then, that game you mentioned, right, that Kazakhstan game, and that game got ugly as it went further, and then the Sweden game, it was just it was kind of a tale of 2 games. But I do think they have gained some traction in the concepts that are being preached to them, and I think that the other part of it is guys that are starting to play together that hadn't played together much are starting to figure each other out a little bit, and that's become more evident in a couple of players that I think flew under the radar earlier in the tournament, first couple of games, like Oliver Wahlstrom started to gain some traction. I think he has begun to pick it up. Sasha Chmielewski has begun to pick it up and start to make an impact. So a couple of guys who were quieter in the first couple of games are starting to make some impact, whether it's on the puck or off the puck, but they're buying into what's needed.
Dave, you just started to mention some individual players, and a couple that stood out to me the last couple of games, Ryan Poehling and Tyler Madden, both of them finding ways to score goals. Obviously, the Poehling hat trick in the Sweden game, I think, opened a lot of people's eyes. These individuals seem to be playing good hockey. Are they surprises to you at all, or are these some guys that you just knew needed the chance to break out of their shell?
Let's start with Ryan Poehling, and obviously I watch Ryan really closely because he's one of our draft picks. But the thing that I look at with Ryan is I watched him in the first half, and I saw a player that was not shooting a ton, was not driving the net a ton, but is being more deferential to his line mates. In the last few games I saw him play, he was playing with Nolan Walker and Robbie Jackson at St. Cloud, and both those guys have been a little snake bit. So, Ryan was really making a very concerted effort to get the pucks to his line mate, or get the puck to his line mates, I should say, and get them scoring, and it worked. And I know that the St. Cloud staff would like to see him shoot the puck a little bit more and get the puck more in the net. And as the end of the first semester came, you started to see that beginning to percolate, and you're seeing it manifest itself here at the World Juniors. But the part of Ryan's game that is always on display is how heavy and hard he is on his stick, how good he is in one-on-one battles, how well he backtracks, and how will he take care of his own zone. He is the absolute perfect definition of if you take care of your own end, offense will come. And that's been a big reason why I think Poehling has been really successful. And then transitioning to Madden, who I know, Jimmy, you see quite a bit more on the Hockey East side of things. The couple of games that I saw him play earlier in the season, the thing that stood out to me was how slippery he was. He's a guy that gets off the wall quick, can drive into a hard area with the puck. The puck kind of follows him. I've used this term, he's like a dog walker. Wherever he goes, the puck seems to go with him. And I think that part of his game has showed up here. Plus, he just plays so darn hard. He's just like his old man. He just plays hard. And you combine his skill, his hockey IQ, and his compete, and you're seeing why he's having success here. Because up here, with the grind that this tournament is, high compete can take you a lot further than maybe your skill set can.
We're speaking with Dave Starman. He's on the NHL Network with the assignment at the World Juniors out in British Columbia. The past couple of seasons, Bob Motzko had a blast heading up the team as head coach. How's Mike Hastings, Minnesota State head coach? How's Mike enjoying it?
Oh, gosh, he's having a ball. And he's got the perfect temperament for this, too. Of all the different head coaches that I've gone through in all my time here, obviously they've each had a different personality, too. And Mike's been really unique. He's just been fun. He's taken a very relaxed approach to this, and he's got Scott Sandlin by his side, and Scott Sandlin and Steve Miller, the two of them as assistants, both seem to get more relaxed as games get more important, and I think that's a great offset to help a guy who's done this for the first time, because Sandlin and Miller obviously have been here on different occasions. But Mike's been great. I see Mike in the gym a ton. He and I seem to work out at the same time every day, and just talking hockey with him down there, he's just got a great grip on what he needs to do as a head coach in a short-term all-star type format. And he's really encouraging his players to play the way that they need to play and play to their strengths, and is constantly juggling, constantly throwing balls in the air to see what he can put together to make everybody on his team successful. He's dealt with some injuries. He's shortened the bench when he's had to. He has been the disciplinarian when needed. And I love the energy that he brings to this group. And here's the other thing about Hasty. He is so deceptively funny that I guarantee you, I'd love to mic the bench, because it could probably turn into a sideshow. He's just got a great sense of humor. He knows the right thing to say at the right time to get his point across.
One of the things he's had to do, you alluded to it, is make some decisions. What led to the decision to put Caden Primo in net yesterday?
Kaiser had the flu.
He's part of that whole thing.
That was well, here's the thing. We're in the hotel with the Swedes and the U.S. Those are the two teams that are in here. And the Swedes had 5 players out yesterday with a stomach flu. It's kind of hit a couple of the U.S. guys as well. And it even hit John Van Beesbroek for a little while, one of these days too. I'll tell you what, just having lived through this thing for a decade, on about December 28th, everybody gets sick. And it comes from nobody sleeps well in hotels. Everybody's rhythm's off. You're not eating the same way you normally would at home, despite the fact that they get fed great here. You're still kind of on a different vibe than you might be either in the dorms or your apartment. And you've been away from home for a long time and out of your normal routine. So it never fails that we get to the 28th or 29th of December and everybody comes down with the flu. And it has now hit the Swedes, like I said. It has hit the U.S. I guarantee it's running through a couple of the other teams too. And there is a bit of a flu bug that's running around the southern part of the province. So it could be a combination of a lot of different things. But it's the one great unknown is how healthy does your team stay as this tournament goes on from an injury standpoint, they've been okay, but it's been the normal 2 or 3 guys who get sick and want to be late scratches.
One of the things that's been pretty evident watching on TV is this terrific fan base in Victoria. What's the atmosphere been like around the games?
Awesome. It reminds me of being in Saskatoon in 2010. This has got to be the most enthusiastic and intense environment that we have been in. And that's not to knock Montreal or Toronto or Buffalo or Edmonton or any of the other places that we've been on the tour, but sometimes the smaller venue is tailor-made for this tournament. And it's great when the gold medal game is in the big building with 18,000 fans, don't get me wrong. But sometimes in the smaller venues for the non-marquee games, when you can sell those things out or get real close, it creates a real unique vibe throughout the community that the games are in. And that's been the case here. And when the Slovaks played Kazakhstan the other night, the place was just about full. And even when the U.S. is not playing and people aren't coming to root against them, this place has been basically full. Having the Swedes and the Finns here have been a huge help because you're looking at future NHL guys on those 2 teams. But it's been crowded buildings. It's been enthusiastic. There's a buzz in the city here about the tournament being here. And I got to be honest, I'm really enjoying it. I kind of feel like we are so far removed from reality out here. And it's been great because it's been nothing but World Junior Hockey. And that's been the mindset of everybody in this area.
More with Dave Starman in a moment. First, a word from the NCAA Frozen Four, April 11th and 13th in Buffalo.
Speed and precision, unrelenting power. This trophy is not given, it must be earned. The 2019 NCAA Frozen Four, April 11th and 13th at KeyBank Center in Buffalo.
With a shot, saved by Morris. Takes the shot,
Visit ncaa.com/Frozen4 and get your tickets today.
We are talking with Dave Starman. He is calling the games with NHL Network out at the World Juniors in British Columbia. Dave, I guess one of the questions that is on a lot of Americans' minds, we have heard about this kid, Jack Hughes, for a long time. Everybody knows that he is going to be a highly sought-after draft pick, possibly a number 1 in this year's draft. But after game 1, we haven't seen him. Obviously, it looked like he got a pretty good bang there in the first game. The U.S., I think, tried to caution it during Kazakhstan's game, saying, it's nothing that serious. But he hasn't returned to the lineup. Do you know anything at this point, and how concerned should American fans be about Jack Hughes?
I would say he practiced well today. He was ripping some shots today, so he's probably taken a step in the right direction. Whether or not he plays tomorrow, I couldn't tell you. I think it'll be closer to a game time decision. And there's a lot of different rumors flying around about did he get hurt on that play against the Slovaks in the third period? We got nailed on the wall, or did he come in a little bit more banged up? And think about this: he's not the biggest kid in the world. He's playing a schedule against college and USHL teams where he's playing against older players, bigger, stronger, faster players, and the grind of that schedule, especially at the NDTP or NTDP, I should say, where the off-ice workouts are pretty intense. I think he was probably nursing a couple of bumps and bruises coming through this, and game 1 might have just manifested everything to the point where the coaching staff took one look at this and said, "Hey, let's err on the side of caution."
Well, I know that American fans would love to see him in the lineup. The next game is on. I'm getting my days of the week screwed up here. It'll be on Wednesday, January 2nd, and it will be the quarterfinal round. This is now win or go home. The Czech Republic. I've heard a little bit of your commentary, but give us your thoughts on how the U.S. matches up with the Czechs in this game.
Oh, I think really, really well. And the last 2 times that these 2 teams have played on January 2nd, the U.S. has won both of them 7-0. And they pasted the Czechs last year in the bronze medal game. I think the 2 most skilled guys in the Czech lineup outside of Zadina are the coaches. Between Barada and Patrick Elias, you got a couple of guys who got pretty good skill level there. But I think that when you take a look at this Czech team, and I've been watching them most of the day on film, watching their games from the Pool A play, The one thing that they can do is they can get up the ice with a decent amount of speed, and they do play hard, but they do not go as deep as the U.S. Despite having 11 skaters at our drafts, they don't go as deep as the U.S. can depth-wise, and they certainly don't match them skill-wise. And one of the biggest differentiating things in this tournament between wins and losses is what do you have outside your top six? And the U.S. is good outside of its top six, and I don't think the Czechs match that whatsoever. I also think the U.S. is stronger in goal. And in terms of mobility on the back end, like I said, the Czechs can get up and go, and they will layer and get into waves with you. But I don't think that any of the Czech defenders can bring the same dynamic as a guy like Quinn Hughes, as a guy like Mikey Anderson, as a guy like Dylan Samberg when he's on his game. I just think the U.S. is too deep. And if the U.S. loses this game, it'll be more like Mrazek in 2012 or Yanush in 2009, where goalie just absolutely stood on his head and stole a game.
Dave, I know that coaches don't like to get ahead of themselves, but we're not coaches, we're the media, so we might as well start talking even further, as assuming like the U.S. could win their next game. The roadmap, nothing, I guess, is ever easy at this part of the tournament, but likely Russia in the semifinal, and then it could be Canada, it could be Sweden, some of these pretty solid teams if they were to get to a gold medal game. A handicap where you feel this USA team is, did we learn something from Sweden that they could skate with pretty much anybody in this tournament? Do they have to have a miracle at some point? Handicap where you think this team could be.
The Swedes are good. They're not dynamic. They're just good. And I think that the thing that has propelled Sweden to where they are right now, which, and by the way, this should get mentioned, they are now at 48 straight wins in the preliminary round, which is mind-blowing. I mean, it's absolutely mind-blowing to think about that. And it's not like they've played, bad teams. I mean, I would say half of those wins have probably come against the lower echelon, but the other half have come against good teams. So give them full mark. But the one thing about the Swedes is they are really efficient, and they don't do a lot to beat themselves, despite taking two really stupid penalties that opened the door for the U.S. in the third period. This is a really balanced team. Their top two lines are real good. Their power play is lethal. This Brandstrom kid on the back end, 12, is really something. He can do a lot, and I love the way their defense plays. I would say their D-core as a whole might be as good as anybody in the tournaments, if not better, in terms of what they bring from a 200-foot game and what they bring from the offensive standpoint. The Russians, I haven't seen a ton of, but the one thing I know that the Russians do very well is, boy, do they stretch the rink. They are really good at picking up pucks, taking a step or two in their own zone, and then airmailing one through the neutral zone to create a race, or just try to throw a real long, hard seam pass right up the gut and see if they can spring some offense quickly. And that's kind of what makes them dangerous. I'm going to be very honest, and this is going to sound shocking. I have not seen Canada play yet. The only reason I've seen the Russians play is because they played the Czechs, and I'm watching that game right now. But I have not had time to pay attention to Canada whatsoever. I know that they are loaded for bear. I'm not going to kid you. But I couldn't give you a really good comment on Canada. I've not seen them other than some highlights.
Well, we will deal with the first game first. It will be January 2nd. That is Wednesday. USA against the Czech Republic. Dave Starman, he will join Steve Nelson on play-by-play. Steve on play-by-play, Dave on color. They will continue to call this tournament from British Columbia through the end, but we always appreciate you taking time away from that. We know the amount of prep you do, so to take this 15, 20-minute chunk away from your prep, we appreciate that, and enjoy the rest of your trip and obviously the rest of the tournament out in BC.
You got it. Thanks, boys. I really appreciate you having me on, as always.
That's our good friend Dave Starman. He's covering the World Junior Championship on the NHL Network up in British Columbia. Jim, it sounds like a pretty good second round coming up, the U.S. taking on the Czechs first. What are your thoughts on the upcoming games?
You know what? I've taken a little bit of time to get sold on this team. I had some concerns maybe about goal scoring. You put up 8 against Kazakhstan, wipe those out. It's 2 goals against the Finns. Against the Slovaks to start, and then you really struggled against the Swedes for so long. And I'm saying, I'm watching that game a few nights ago and saying, I don't know, I'm just not sold on this team. And then, that explosive last 10 minutes of the third period, You lose in overtime, but then you come back with a great New Year's Eve effort against Finland, and you really take it to what I think is a good Finnish team. So I'm getting a little bit more bullish on this team. I think I need to see them obviously put out, not just beat the Czechs, but put out a really good effort. Then you're going to be probably faced with Russia. And, as you heard Starman say, you got to be able to find a way to slow them down. Don't let them stretch you out. That's a really important part of the game, and maybe a great goaltending effort. We know that the U.S. has that ability. Get one of those efforts. Maybe you're playing for a gold medal, and once that happens, you just never know what the result will be.
Dave mentioned the U.S. team, the players starting to get used to each other. I've been impressed at how well they're moving the puck east and west on the ice.
I totally agree with that. And you see it, especially I love the way that their power play looks and their ability to just kind of find those seams, attack them, get those shots off. They're scrambling. There's just so many good opportunities. I think of Madden's first goal last night against the Finns as just one. Everybody felt like they knew where the other person was on the ice, and you're able to throw a pass from the right corner to the left post, and there's your player in Taylor Madden there to poke it home. So I do feel like the gel is coming, but it's a one and done scenario. That's the one thing about this tournament that makes it so dangerous. You lose another game, you're done.
Lastly, Dave mentioned about Mike Hastings and him having a blast and probably having some humor on the bench and knowing the right thing to say. I think that was a watchword for Bob Motzko the last couple of seasons, knowing how to talk to the players, knowing the right thing to say at the right time.
You and I have both dealt with Mike a number of times in our broadcasting careers, and he's just got that personality that he's not going to go a little bit over the edge and really upset a player. He knows how to balance the personality, and at the same time, when you're a pretty humble person like he is, and like a Bobby Motzko, those personalities, there's no ego involved. So these players know that this isn't ego driven. It's really all about the good of the team, and I think that he's balanced that very well right now, and you can see that showing through. These players seem to take instruction very well. They've improved every game, and that's usually the sign not just of a good team, but also a good coach.
I'm going to give you one last thing to go out on the limb on. Who starts in net for the U.S. against the Czechs?
I think it comes down to the health. If your goalie is healthy, you're going to go with your number one. But you have a Caden Primo in back who looked very good. I don't think that you step away from the man who was designed to have that number one role. Caden Primo's excellent, but you've got to play with the guy who has been intended to get you there.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of USCHO Spotlight. A happy new year to you, and some great college hockey and World Junior hockey coming up this week. For Jim Connelly, I'm Ed Trefzger, and we'll catch you next time.
This has been the USCHO Spotlight, a production of U.S. College Hockey Online. Visit uscho.com/podcasts to listen or subscribe.